Megs and I sat together at lunch, though we were both very quiet. Chapter 30. It took me the whole meal to get out the sentence I needed to say. Come with me. Okay. On the way out of the lunchroom, I caught Gunner's elbow. Come with us? Where? You'll see. Making sure no one followed us, I led them up the stairs and along the hallway to my door with Rainer's room. I took the key in my hand and just held it. My friends waited. My assignment here, I spend time with a Tissian soldier. It's my job to get to know him, to find out what he knows. That's all. I thought you might like to meet him. Megs and Gunner looked at each other. I mean, maybe not like to. Would you come to meet him? There's been a Tissian here all this time, Gunner asked. About as long as I've been here. If you come in, can you talk to him about anything except our work, okay? They both nodded. And don't be afraid. I opened the door, and the three of us stepped inside. You brought people to stare at me? Rainer's eyes opened wider as all three of us filed into my side of the room. He came close to the fence. To meet you. Hello, Meg said in Tissian. It must be true, then, that Sophorenders do not go to school. There's a war on, Gunner said. We're learning plenty. Rainer smiled. I relaxed. Rainer, these are my friends, Megs and Gunner. Miss Megs, Mathilde told me about you. Did she? Meg's cheeks went pink. Yes, you have been good friends for a long time. I've not heard of you, Gunner. I'm new. We met here. The mysterious here. Where are we? All three of us pressed our lips tight. Right. The place no one talks about. Megs looked at me, and I nodded at her to go ahead. What do you want most? To win the war? To go home. I've had enough of the war. Us too, Gunner said. But I cannot go home. Why not? Megs asked. It is not honorable to have been caught by the enemy. My family will be ashamed of me. If the army found me... Gunner, Megs, and I all looked at each other. I could guess by the looks on their faces, like me, neither of them had thought about not being welcomed home if we got to go back. Rainer wasn't welcome on either side. He would never be, ever again. I'm sorry, Meg said. You were captured in Sophorend? Gunner asked. Yes. What were you doing here? Rainer looked from one of us to the next. There's a war on. Gunner stared back at him and crossed his arms over his chest, but then he shrugged. You go ahead, I said to Megs and Gunner. I'll come down soon. Goodbye, Miss Megs and Mr. Gunner. Be glad you Sophorenders do not go to school. Megs and Gunner didn't know Rainer well enough to see the change that came over his eyes as he said that. It happened so quickly. After they left, Rainer looked at me. Do Sophorenders seem like people who have stolen from you? I asked. Your friends seemed nice. The whole world is not there for you to take. You have to let people have a part of it. Rainer sighed. We both sat down in our usual spots. We were quiet for a little while. What did you mean about be glad we don't go to school? At first, Rainer did nothing. Then he covered his face with his hands. What is it? I waited. Finally, he said, in the Skaven lands, they made us burn down a school. I stared at him. He didn't move. He kept his face covered. Why? The schoolmaster. He would not follow the rules. He would not conduct the school day in Tissian. He would not teach our Tissian history. We received orders to make an example of him. My heart was pounding. But the school was empty, right? Everyone had gone home, right? Covering my ears didn't block out his crying. It would echo in my dreams, my nightmares. They rose in my mind again, like when your throat warns you before you throw up, the nightmares I shared with him. I didn't want to share anything with him. I scooched backward, pressing against the wall to get as far away from him as I could. When I couldn't feel my hands anymore, I dropped them, letting the blood trickle back on pins and needles. I twisted my cardigan in my lap. Mother told us not to do that. We'd stretched our sweaters out. I wanted to lie down, but not in the cell. I needed to get out of the cell. You must hate me. What did he care if I hated him? What did he care about one Sophorender girl? I didn't know that it was possible for my heart to beat so fast. What were you doing in Sophorend? After a while, he said, looking for gaps in your border defenses in the mountains. We made it in, but not too far, as you know. That should have been reassuring, but what were you supposed to do after that, after you got in and told the others how to get in? It was my job to find out. But wasn't that what Raynor had been doing? His job? I didn't want to know any more. I was late for playtime. I went down the steps, looking around for my friends. No Tissia tag, again. Gunnar waved. I waved back. We would talk later. Meg stood waiting for me, hands in her skirt pockets. I headed over to her. I'm sorry, she said. I had no idea. I understand why you had to keep that a secret. It's all right. The war pulled us apart once already. I wasn't going to let one more soldier become between us. Meg smiled, but the gentle look in her eyes disappeared quickly. Mathilde, what's wrong? You're shaking. I pulled my sweater around me as tight as I could. It's not cold out. Did something happen? Did Raynor upset you after we left? I nodded, but I couldn't tell her. He had done that terrible thing, and he lived right here in the building with us, where we ate and slept and played. Meg squeezed her arm through mine. We walked around the wooded area of Fader's enclosure. I could almost pretend we were back home. As we came out to the clearing again, we could hear it. A low, low rumble at first, then distinct. My stomach tightened. We all looked up as a team of tiger-striped aerials zoomed overhead. For a moment, we all stood still. Then, most of the children raced to go back inside. The examiner halted us on the steps. Stay outside, keep playing. A couple of girls gasped. They're not bombers, Hamlin explained. We're okay. But were our aerials? Aren't they going to chase them again? But where are our aerials? Aren't they going to chase them? We need to help. We've given word of these sightings to the right people, but we need your protection now more than ever. Make it look like a school from the air. And Nevi, you're it. Nevi nodded. She hit the girl next to her. At the same time, Gunnar and Megs declared themselves it too, Megs hitting me and Gunnar chasing after someone else. Brid slammed into Kylan. Hamlin was also it somehow, running in the direction of a Nevi to make it her it again. I took off. Maybe I could get Hamlin after he got a Nevi. Suddenly, we were playing the most furious game of tag in the history of the world.